So this video is for the nighttime section, and hopefully they'll get as much out of it as all of you here in the live group. So what I want to do is, first of all, introduce. This is Mr. Tim Vickers. Okay.
Hey guys.
Hello. Tim is a longtime friend of mine. We were just talking about, we met back in 1997. 96, 97-ish. I was asked to join a development team at the nuclear plant in Berwick, where this gentleman was already, they were already in motion for, how long was that project going?
Started in 93, I think. I didn't come on board until 95.
So he was there several years. I came in, I was the new guy, and I think how we got to know each other really was simply by the fact that I kept on bothering him. I kept on asking him questions. And then I think after that, we had such a great rapport with everybody working on this team, and I think there was probably about 20?
At least 20. It was a real dream team we had there.
Yeah, we had a lot of good people. So it was fun. It was a lot of fun, and it was like lightning striking. I'll easily tell you that when you have a good thing going, enjoy it, because it doesn't last forever. And after that, after I left, the project downsized. Tim has gone on to do some other projects, still related to what he started there, actually directly related to what you started there. And he'll tell you about that, and then say a little bit about his background. So that's what I thought I would start off with. You'll get a chance to ask some questions, but why don't you tell everybody about your background?
Okay.
Starting with your education.
Oh, okay. A way to reel me in there already. Okay. Well, I went to the University of Kentucky. Yes, the NCAA champion University of Kentucky. Yes, those guys. It's got a great public education there. I'm a huge supporter in public schools. You guys are in the right place at the right time. I think you get a great education here without spending gobs and gobs of money, although you might think you're already spending gobs and gobs of money. It could be much worse, I promise. So I really enjoyed the University of Kentucky, and it definitely prepared me very well for everything that came after. Now, do you want me to start jumping into co-op stuff, or do you want to?
What was your major? You were
computer science.
You were strict computer science.
Minor in mathematics.
So
but I can't add two numbers together, so it doesn't show.
So that's where he and I have also an interesting background, because I was computer science math also. However, I went into the military, and Tim actually made use of his skills. So it was kind of funny. Tim, why don't you talk about, instead of doing an internship, you did
a co-op.
Co-op,
which was a little bit different. The thing that was really great about the co-op is that I would go work for an entire semester. I wouldn't go to school at all. Internships, you kind of blend the two worlds together. But I'd go work for an entire semester, and then I'd come back. In fact, I wasn't even in the same city. I was going to school in Lexington, Kentucky, but my co-op was in Columbus, Ohio. So I went to work for this company called Chemical Abstract Services, and I got to devote all of my time to working and also playing, because I got to make tons of money, tons more money than I was making at McDonald's, which is where I was working before, and actually working in the field, which was just phenomenal. In fact, right before we came in here, I was talking to Fred about the idea of starting maybe a co-op program here, because already the internship is a big part of what you guys do here. But the co-op was great because when I came back from working, then I didn't have to work. I saved enough money from the co-op because I was making tons of money compared to what I was making at McDonald's. And I was able to devote all my time to school. So I became a much better student as a result. And I still got to have fun at the same time.
When you were in school, and both when I was in school, we didn't have the desktop PC yet. We were working mainframe. So when you went to do your co-op, what kind of technologies were you using?
Using mini computers. They were all VAXs, although some of what I did was to interface the mini computers with the mainframes. So they had some things that still had to be submitted using archaic languages, and they were actually starting to use C on the mainframe, so I was writing jobs that would take things that had been developed on the VAX and the Unix operating system. In fact, even at that tender young age, they called me Grandpa Unix, because I really liked Unix. I really immersed myself in it. And
Unix with an X.
Unix with an X. That's right. Thanks for that clarification. It's very different. That's a very different conversation.
Right. So then, when you did the co-op, you graduated. And then what was your first job after you graduated?
Actually, my first real job came before I graduated, which was awesome. The co-op led me into an opportunity where I was also interning, so I got the best of both worlds. I started interning, and I can't say enough how important this is. Now, internships are a part of your program here. You have to do an internship, but it's the most valuable thing that I did, and I can't say it strongly enough. When you are blessed with the opportunity to get an internship, do a good job. It's going to make a big difference. Work hard, always get more than they're asking you for. Don't go in and just kill time. It's an opportunity to learn as much, if not more, as you learn in a class, especially one of Fred's classes. But it is an opportunity for you to put hands-on stuff and actually solve problems. And he and I talk all the time about this. The most important skill you guys are going to develop in school is not any given technology. Don't get too attached to it. We're going to talk about technology today, but don't get attached to anything because it continues to evolve. What's most important is that you can solve a problem given anything in any environment. You might be asked to solve a problem in COBOL. I hope not, but you might. Be the guy that says, yeah, I can do that. I'll do it. No matter what they ask you to do it and do a good job at it and give them more than they ask for. Do it in school as well. Fred gives you an assignment. Don't give him just what he asked for. Give him way more than he asked for. Go over the top. It prepares you to be that guy when you're out in the world and be a value-added resource so that people want you to be there. It's very competitive out there, and it's very easy for jobs to go someplace else. You want to be the person that they call on because they trust that you to get the job done. So I can't overstate that.
What, you know, when you talk about...
I'm starting to go towards what my first job is, so don't forget that, because it was a really cool job.
Well, no, go ahead.
Okay. Well, the internship led me to working with someone who decided to go into consulting. And she kind of pulled me along for the ride. So I got an interview to do consulting for Adolph Coors Brewing Company. A dream job. It was fantastic. When I went for the interview, they took us on a factory tour. And it was all I could do not to giggle through the whole thing. It was just really, showed me this machine. It was putting beer in a can, 3,200 cans of beer a minute. And it's like, I just love this job. I don't even have it yet. I love it. So, but it was a great job too. I got to work with people from forklift drivers to the VPs of the company and everything in between. It was really very cool. That was a consulting job. And I didn't even know what consulting was. I was introduced to that world, and I've been a consultant ever since. In fact, in that job, I hadn't even graduated yet. I was still one semester away from graduating. And I was already making more with that consulting job than I expected to make at the end of my career. It's like, this is just fantastic. And it's been up and up and up ever since.
What made you see, though, that you needed to keep on going?
Because I wasn't going to stay in Elkton, Virginia for the rest of my life. And while that was a great job, there were tons more great jobs out there. And you can't bail out early. In fact, they tried hard to get me to bail out. They said, you don't really need to finish. You're already doing great work here.
Oh, with your degree?
Yeah, with my degree.
Oh, wow.
And they said, or you can finish your degree here at James Madison University. And it's like, well, I came this close to finishing at UK. I need to finish there.
No, I did not know that.
Yeah, they were trying to get me to change course.
Wow, that's a heavy temptation.
It was, you know, like all 5 starters for the University of Kentucky now going into the NBA. You know, no, you guys should stay and get an education or get a $60 million contract.
It's a tough
They weren't
choice.
offering me $60 million, but it was still a lot more than I thought it was going to be.
No, what I was going to ask you before was, in your parade of technologies, you know, you went from what we had as the mainframe computing world, now up to the web, the internet and app world, and you're in that now.
Yeah.
Can you tell them anything about that? You know, you said about keeping your eyes on technology as it moves. What has that been like? I know what it's like, but tell them what it's like for you to kind of keep learning that new technology in some way. But then there's also that one consistent thing that stays the same in all of it. You want to kind of talk about problem solving skills and the technology, I guess.
Well, it's an absolute guarantee. This is a no-brainer that technology is going to continue to change. And if you get too attached to any one technology and you poo-poo some other technology saying, I'm not going to use that, then guess what? You're not going to get that job. And I'm always continuing to grow. I always grow in new skills. It doesn't just stop with a given job. Each new job that I've started has required some skills that I didn't have before. I mean, I had the experience to know how to solve problems using these other technologies, but I didn't know how to do, for instance, .NET stuff, which I'm really fluent in now. When I was asked to do things using any one of these technologies, I would let them know that I wasn't well versed in it at the time, but I didn't make a huge deal out of it. What I did instead was, I didn't want to sell myself as already an expert in, say, .NET. We'll stick using that as an example. But what I did was I very quickly became the expert on it. So even when I came to the job with PP&L, I first came on board, that job was all about using case technology. And I don't know if anybody even uses case for anything anymore, but it's computer-aided something.
Software engineering.
Software engineering, yeah. Software engineering, I should know that. So it's one of those things that I didn't have any experience with, but I knew how to use the Oracle database. That was the database they were using. And I knew how to use the forms interface. They were using SQL Forms, which was Oracle's proprietary solution for user interfaces. So I knew those two things. I came in, and within 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks of my being there, people that had already been working on it for 2 years were coming to me and asking me questions. And they already forgot that I didn't know the technology when I came in the door. So I recommend that to you guys. I mean, don't lie. Don't tell somebody you know something you don't know. But don't make a big deal about it. Spend time, put in that extra effort when you get in the door, and become the expert on it. Become that go-to person that people come to and ask questions. Because that's just going to keep adding to your experience. You're going to keep growing, people are going to keep relying on you, and that's how you're going to keep getting a better and better experience. And it doesn't hurt to like computers as well. If you don't like computers, you may have chosen very poorly. So make sure you choose something you like to do.
What skill sets have you acquired over the years then? If you were to summarize them in alphabet soup there.
Well, started with Unix with an X. And C, the original C, not C++, not C#, not CQ, not any other version of C that you can come up with. The original C, Kernighan and Ritchie C in Unix, and I really, really like that environment a lot. I still like that a lot as a developer's environment. And of course, Linux is the popular Unix these days. But I still think it's a great environment. It's one of those that when you start trying to pick it up, it's really awkward, and they have all kinds of secret handshakes that you have to figure out. But once you do, you look like a superhero. So I like it.
Databases too.
And databases in the beginning, most of them were proprietary databases. I didn't have much to do with databases at all when I was a co-op. But then the thing that really started building on the future for me was working with the Oracle database. My internship, I was using Oracle. And that's where I started using the SQL Forms and getting used to the Oracle technology and all that kind of stuff. Highly, highly marketable skill it was. I'm not sure that you could bank on that skill these days. I mean, it's still very valuable. Oracle's still a major player in the world and all that kind of stuff. But I really just kind of seemed to hit the right things at the right time, and I was really glad to be a part of that. So in that internship, I actually started using a PC for the first time. Now, up until then, I considered PCs only toys. And it's like, these things aren't going to catch on. That's ridiculous. Who would use one of these?
We've heard that a lot.
And yeah, it just keeps on changing.
Yeah,
and,
that's something you'll hear a lot. I heard a lot when I was doing the web stuff from KHI.
Yeah.
One of our managers,
It's okay.
yeah, he used to say the internet stuff that we were doing was a fad. You guys were playing around. So we continued to play, and lo and behold, it became
Unbeknownst to us.
yeah.
So moved on from there, still using Oracle, and then moved on to different versions of C. I'd used versions of C that would interface with Oracle called Pro-C, and I continued to grow in those interfaces. Those were my real meal tickets for a long time. And then I started using the Oracle Web Server or Oracle Application Server. Again, it was Oracle's technology, but it was something, and this was something that Fred used an awful lot at PP&L, and they would use their own proprietary language, PL SQL, which is just code stored in the database, and Fred said that you guys dealt with that just a little bit in SQL Server, storing T-SQL procedures and that kind of stuff. But it would allow them to create dynamic web pages from the database, which is of course what you want to do. I mean, one of the most important things you're going to do is manipulate data. You're going to pull data out of a database, you're going to put data into the database, you're going to let people search it. I mean, that's what the world is. And it's going to keep evolving, you're going to use different things. But, so use that technology, and this big project that I worked on for many years called Rapid was a website, and it was used, or is still used, to provide information between nuclear power plants, to share inventory information and other information. When a nuclear power plant is down, it costs about $2 million a day for them to have that unit down. The Berwick plants that you see down here, the ones where you can see the water vapor coming up above, anytime you see only one vapor cloud there, the other one down, that's costing them about $2 million a day. Now this website, Rapid, is to give them immediate access to inventory at other plants. So they could go down to other plants here in Pennsylvania, or they can order from across the country to get that stuff in very quickly, quicker than they could get from a vendor, because they already have an established relationship. So that's what Rapid does in a nutshell. And we kept changing the technology for Rapid. When I first started doing work for Rapid, we were using this Oracle web server technology. And I started working with them in 1999. And in the year 2000, we decided we wanted Rapid to be a much bigger thing. We wanted it to be an e-commerce site and all kinds of different things, and it was a perfect time to change technologies. So we started using Java and J2EE. Along with that, we used enterprise Java Beans, EJBs. Now, I don't know the state of EJBs today, but I can tell you they were absolutely the worst technology in the world. It was a terrible, terrible choice on our parts. EJBs were supposed to make everything easier, from data access to manipulation, to writing into the database and all that stuff, but they were so cumbersome to use. It was supposed to make it nearly automatic, but it added like 5 extra layers of work. It was ridiculous. So the next thing we did when we had a chance, once we got past that point, and at this point, when we started converting to this new technology, we brought on 20 people, I think. We had people all over the country and one guy in Canada working on it. Now the cool thing about a web project, of course, is you can be anywhere. So most of us were home in our fuzzy slippers and wearing our pajamas all day and not really leaving the house. And they are fuzzy slippers. I still need to get a new pair of fuzzy slippers because I'm working at home again and they're all worn out. So we're spread all over the place, and we're able to collaborate and work on this, and that's more and more the way of the world. You're going to see more of that happen. And as we get more into this conversation about the cloud, you're going to see how it all kind of fits together and makes that work. But so we went through that iteration, we created the version with EJBs and all that stuff, and the next iteration we did was to still use Java, still use certain elements of J2EE, still using Unix. We were on Sun machines using Sun Solaris, so using their flavor of Unix. We had 3 different Unix servers that were doing all the work. And this next iteration, we took advantage of other technologies like Ajax, which I don't know if you've had to do anything with that yet, but it's really just...
we have some older students here, but the younger students haven't seen that.
Okay. It's another one of those things, sort of like the cloud. It's not really a new thing. It's just a rehashing of an old thing. But it does allow you to create a really interactive experience on the web, so that you're creating things that feel more like applications, but they're deployed via the browser. So obviously you have a lot of advantages to that. And so we wanted to take advantage of those technologies and get rid of EJBs because they really stank. And that's that iteration.
You know, when you talk about that though, moving from technology X to technology, Y and then Z, that process requires what? Code conversion, rewrites?
Absolutely, yeah. Rewrite from scratch for the most part.
So I guess, so for everyone who can understand it in here, say you have a CompSci 101 program written in C++, and now you're going to take it to the next class, and they want it done in Java. Or maybe that's not a great example, but you would have to then basically rewrite it. And this is an application. These are massive applications with thousands of lines of code somebody has to redo. And we're finding ourselves doing that a lot in our industry right now, to the point where...
We call that job security.
We call that job security, that's right. We also do a lot of layering, I think. We'll never probably really rebuild massive systems from scratch ever again. But we've created technologies that allow us to scaffold on top of old technologies. So I don't know if it's a good way to go. No, we won't know what the results will be for probably years to come.
Well, and it kind of depends. I mean, what you want to do really is, if you have the time to take advantage of a total rewrite and take advantage of all the current technology, then that's probably what you want to do. But you want to do it wisely. You want to build things that you can build on. In fact, the key area of competency for me is software infrastructure. building things that you use to build the other things. I mean, that's what the case tool was. That's how I ended up being the expert in that, is that the entire application was built on top of the things that I put together. The idea is you want to make it easier and quicker and faster to keep building these things. And when you switch technologies, the last time we switched technology on the Rapid project, I was forced to change. Kicking and screaming to switch it to .NET, C#, and SQL Server. Kicking and screaming because I was definitely a technology bigot, and I still am in some areas. I've been giving Fred a hard time on some things. Just today, it's the only way to go. He wants to use some Android tablet. It's nuts. So anyway, so I thought that there was no way you could do as good a job with the Microsoft tools as we have done with Java. I mean, the thing I really liked about Java was that you could run it on any platform. I created an application that was used to extract the data from the databases from all these nuclear power plants and shift it up to our server. The exact same code that I deployed to all of these sites that they put inside their firewalls at a nuclear power plant is exactly the same code I had running on our Unix server. I didn't have the graphical interface, but I didn't have to rewrite the tool. So a huge advantage with Java that I really, really liked. And I didn't think we could do anything like that with the Microsoft tools. But I was forced to make this change because there were more people in the company in the Florida office, which is where actually everything was run. All of the servers for this product were always down in Florida. And we'll talk about what a stupid idea that is in just a minute. They had more people that knew C# and knew .NET and knew SQL Server and all that stuff, so they wanted to take advantage of all those resources. So it was time to rewrite Rapid again, but use that technology to take better advantage of human resources.
And then kind of before I ask you about what you're doing now and kind of telling the class about the cloud stuff, talk a little bit about your skills with SQL, being more of a skill set. In this litany of skills that you picked up over the years, you've also worked a lot with writing complex select statements. They've had some experience writing SQL and then going into join statements. Any advice for them as far as that as a skill set and where that can lead?
In much the same way that I thought PCs were just toys and they would never catch on, I thought, why do I need to know SQL? Nobody uses SQL. This is some academic exercise that I'm never going to use in the real world, and you're wasting my time. In fact, at that time, I thought I was going to be writing compilers and writing assemblers. I thought I was going to be this real mad scientist, computer scientist dude who was going to be doing all these kinds of things, and realized that there's not as much work for those guys as there are for the guys that can actually do good business applications. So really, if that were to sum things up, I'm more of a business application kind of a guy. Now.
Yeah.
And whereas I pictured myself being a lot more of a theoretical guy and all that kind of stuff. And so it was a very different shift. Don't underestimate the power of SQL and whatever database technology that you're using. I mean, relational database technology is still really very pervasive, and whether you're using Oracle or SQL Server, I mean, they're all going to have a little different flavor to them, but the core concepts are still the same. You need to understand the idea of normalization of your data. You need to understand the importance of being able to quickly get your data out of the database. Understand how you can use special indexing called text indexing, which lets you do Google-like searches. Do they have to do anything like that?
They're not indexing, no. That would be probably on the 400 level.
Okay. So just know that unless you come up with the next Angry Birds, you are probably going to get a job that has to do with manipulating data. And it's going to be in some kind of database. Relational database is still very strong. Even Amazon has their own flavor that I haven't checked out. I can't tell you anything about it, but a lot of the things that you've already learned, even in this basic level course, you can use in all of those technologies. And the important thing is to be able to figure out how to use those same tools in the new technology. It's like using a different sized hammer. In fact, I used that exact example when I was going for my job interview at Adolph Coors. I can remember using that now. It's weird that it would come into my head. But that, you know how to use a hammer. Hammer's a hammer. But sometimes you got to use a big hammer, sometimes you use a small hammer, and sometimes it's got a weird attachment on the end, and you don't know what that attachment is for. But in the end, it's still a hammer. Same with all of these tools. take the things that you've learned in Fred's class here with SQL, you're going to be applying them to other classes here as long as you continue with computer-related classes. You might get to one of those stumper classes that makes you decide you'd rather be a forest ranger or something. That's good. That's good too. World needs forest rangers too. But until then, understand that you're going to keep learning all these new tools, and you can piece them all together to do some really magical things. Like I said, don't get too attached to any one of them, because you may be put in a position where somebody says, well, I've got to do it this way, like I was kicking and screaming to do the .NET version of Rapid. I don't know how to do it, I don't want to do it, this is going to be stupid, it's not going to be as good, it's not, that's a great application. We created something great, more than doubled my skill set, because between SQL Server and .NET, C# and all of that, I now have an all new set of tools that I can go out and use to fix problems. In fact, they're my go-to tool set now. I mean, that's what I use. If I'm given a choice, that's what I use instead. And boy, if you'd asked me 3 years ago, I never would have said that. But truthfully, one of the things that Microsoft did really good, at least I'm not an English major, did really well, was Microsoft Visual Studio. Great tool. I can't believe how good it is. I mean, they did a great job, and it makes it easy to deploy web services. Another important technology you guys should pick up. The idea is knowing how to get data from here to here via web services, which is going to happen more and more. I mean, as you get more of these kinds of things, and more phones and more devices, and even these things are only going to last for a few years. It's not going to be long before you have a chip in your contact lens. And you're going to be staring at a screen, and we'll never talk to anybody again. We'll be texting with our eyeballs.
Have you seen the Google Glasses video?
I have.
Because I showed it to the class, and we all looked at it, and I think everybody, had their reactions and their take on it. But you're right. It's interesting. The interfaces will change, but some of the stuff on the backside still stays the same.
Absolutely. And the truth is, even as it changes, it still all stays the same. I mean, the funny thing is that we've gone through these cycles, and we've seen this. We've been in technology long enough where, in the old days, it was the mainframe. The mainframe was everything, and you had all these dumb terminals hooked up to it. And you say, well, we'll never get more powerful than this. This is fantastic. This is the mecca. This is where it all begins. In fact, and ends. And then we started getting these PCs, which were cute little toys at first, and all of a sudden they got pretty powerful. And then somebody had a great idea. Let's distribute the processing power across all these PCs. We'll call it grid computing. And we'll take advantage of all of these PCs working all at the same time and put them together. And then we realized, you know what, that costs too much money. Let's go back to having one really strong centralized computing thing, and let's have dumb clients. Well, now our dumb clients aren't quite so dumb. They're pretty smart. However, they rely on the power of an awful lot of more powerful computers out there. So even though the entry-level iPad at $499 is not exactly chump change, it's a lot cheaper than the first PCs that could do almost nothing. So you get the best of both worlds here. You get a lot of stuff that can run locally on these things and on your phones and all that kind of stuff. But you get to leverage all the stuff that's out there in the cloud.
And before we get into that, then, where do you think it's going? I know what I think, but...
Well, I think it's going to continue to evolve. We're going to keep getting more and more services that are out there instead of in here. We're going to keep getting better clients, but eventually, like I said, these are going to disappear too. I mean, we're not going to have these anymore. And I think notebooks, I'd be surprised to see notebooks last more than 5 years.
Well, there was an interesting time too when we looked at the Google search as being the interface. Search, period. No clicking, no pointing, no tapping, just search. That was considered that was going to probably be the interface. And how quickly now that has even kind of fallen off the map right now, because this took such a big, a big presence in the market. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's where it's interesting to see where is it all going to go.
It's all about making it easier for people to use. Things like Siri coming along on the iPhone.
Right. Voice search.
Which is funny because, I mean, you're not going to use that at a concert. You're not going to be able to use that technology at a concert. Mm-hmm. But on day-to-day use, you're going to be, using stuff like that more often, and whatever comes after Siri. And what I thought was amazing when that came out is people talking about that as a major threat to Google. And I'm like, what? Because I mean, Google is the search. I mean, it's become a verb. You know, let me Google it.
Yeah.
And it's funny. I remember the first time I saw that in a movie, thinking how ridiculous that was, and it's
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, it's really a term.
Even the website, the first time we hit that website, everyone was still using Alta Vista and
Oh, yeah.
Yahoo and what were some of the other search engines that you guys might have seen before? Did you-
Ask Jeeves.
Yeah, Ask Jeeves and stuff like that. Ask Jeeves has some intelligence.
Well, as an example, I mean, when Fred and I started working together in 96, 97, I mean, when exactly did the internet begin?
It was right. It
94?
was right. We saw it hit really its stride while we were working together.
Yeah.
That's when we started to see websites really starting to stand up. Prior to that, it was still Gopher and
using AOL.
and using AOL.
AOL
AOL was
was-
a and CompuServe, and we were using it as a service. We didn't realize there was this internet thing out there.
Yeah, they would digest the information and spit it out to you in ways that they would speed it up. They made it easier for you to use, and we're still doing that kind of stuff today. But now it's on, an insanely higher level.
And that was what was really a challenge for me with the team that I had to work on the DSS website we were
Oh,
doing.
Lord help Larry, he's not too proud.
We
I
We
worked
were-
with Larry for 10 years after.
we didn't really like nobody really. There was no instruction manual. There was no manual like today when you go out and find a lot of these books.
yeah.
We were really trying to just figure out what are we going to do with this thing? What value is it? All we knew is that people that weren't on the premise of the business, they were at home. They wanted to be able to see their data remotely. That was the driving thing, really, and graphically. Everybody wanted better. That's an interesting thing. Everybody wants better graphics. Everybody wants better visualization. Everyone wants to see things to the point where they don't have to think anymore. That's like the dashboards that you worked on for this project. They wanted that dashboard approach. So, but let's move on a little bit. So what? And you kind of already talked about what you're doing today, but what?
Well, not exactly. I mean, I spun off from what I had done for a long time with Rapid, but used that same approach on the new project I'm working with, but it's still a nuclear plant application. But we're still using Microsoft SQL Server 2008, using IIS, which is Microsoft's web server, and using Windows platform, and I'm using C# and .NET 4.0 to develop it. But it's using the same kind of thing, and it's the same deal. You're gathering data, you're searching data, you're regurgitating data in ways that it's useful to the person who needs to get to it, and it's got to be fast.
So how does Amazon come into play then?
Amazon came into play. Let me rewind just a little bit and talk. The servers that we were using for Rapid for all those years were in the company's computer room down in Florida. Now, they started out originally in Idaho, and then they were moved down to Florida because of some very old school thinking. The guys in charge of the project said, "These are my servers, I want to be able to touch them." Now, these guys couldn't have picked these servers out in a police lineup. I mean, if they went into the server room, they wouldn't have been able to pick them out. They didn't know which one was theirs. I mean, you could have put any tag on any one of them. And in fact, we probably could have saved a lot of money if we just put a tag on one of them and said, "This is the Rapid server." And the guy went in and said, "Oh, look, there it is. Look at those lights. Isn't that nice?" And then not going through all the hassle of moving from Idaho to Florida. But moving these servers to Florida was the most ridiculous idea ever, because anybody have any idea why it's a bad idea to have servers in Florida? Any ideas? Yeah.
Hurricane season.
Hurricane season. Every single year, hurricanes are coming close to that area. I mean, it's a great place for spring break. It's a great place for vacation. It's a great place to go hang out with Mickey. It's a rotten place to put a server. I mean, what a ridiculous idea. So instead of moving these servers away from there, what we did was come up with a backup plan with servers in Berwick that would let us, anytime a hurricane was coming close, we'd roll all the service over into Berwick on a much slower machine, a much slower connection, and then once the hurricane was gone, we'd roll it all back. It's like, that's just nuts. Who would do that? But we did for a long time. So finally we started talking about outsourcing it. We weren't calling it putting it in the cloud, but outsourcing the hardware so that the hardware is being used someplace outside the building. And the first people that we talked to about this wanted to charge $10,000 a month to do it.
Wow.
It's like, you guys are nuts. We'll never do that. And actually, I think to have the backup system that we needed to make sure, because this service is used 24 hours a day, nuclear power plants don't just stop. It's got to be available 24/7. So to have a backup system, it was now like $20,000 a month. And just absolutely nuts. So we decided outsourcing, that's just too expensive. We can't do that. Now, we didn't realize what else was going on in the world, and I can't tell you exactly when it became clear to me that companies like Amazon and GoDaddy and other companies were providing these kinds of services. But I only started taking advantage of that most recently with this project that I'm working on. Now, since I've left Rapid, they have actually gone with another company. They finally got the servers out of Florida, and they're using some company in New Jersey, which unfortunately is still susceptible to hurricanes, just not as susceptible as Florida. And hopefully this company has got some redundant system in some other geographic location that's out away from the coast someplace. So for me, when I was leaving Rapid, I needed to start looking at ways to develop on my own. I no longer had these resources that I'd had for a long, long time, and I needed to start coming up with solutions. Before I came on board with the company that I'm doing work with now, I thought I was going to come up with the next Angry Birds. I still might someday, who knows. But at the very least, I needed a place to do development work. And so I started checking into things, and I used a company called InfoQuest, which I think you introduced me to too. And I'd used them for years for just static websites, nothing too advanced. Fred did a lot more with them than I did. But then I realized that they had this service where they offered virtualized servers. Yeah. And for $30 a month, $40 a month, you can get a virtualized server.
Which is actually rack space, I think.
Which is actually, yeah. And exactly right, it's rack space in there. And who knows exactly how they're laid out. The cool thing is you don't really need to know. And it's one of those things I was able to start taking advantage of right away. And the initial versions of the software that I'm creating right now, I built on this development server. In fact, we're still using this development server as our standby server. I have mechanisms in place that will move information from our production server, which is an Amazon server we'll talk about in just a minute, and move it over to the InfoQuest, because our Amazon server is in Washington State, and this one is in Harrisburg. So now we have two different geographic locations, and we're not victim to a power outage on the whole West Coast and all that kind of stuff. Truthfully, I should have a better backup server, and I will at some point, but this one is working really well. In fact, used this as our production server for about 3 weeks, and it worked great.
What kind of volume of data are you talking about?
Well, at this point, it's still really small because we just have the one customer, Exelon, at this point. Huge utility, and they're still just getting to the point where they're using it. We're right in the middle of outage season. They have outages twice a year.
Outages are a period of time when they go in and do repairs on the towers.
Yeah, they go in and do work. They shut everything down, and sometimes it's for refueling, sometimes it's for maintenance. But everybody's super, super busy this time of year. We put this product in place. We got it production December 31st because of budgetary issues, but nobody really has gotten into using it too much. They're still coming out of outage season and all that stuff. So I don't have any good volume numbers for you.
But as much as the data, like, how many records are you looking at? Generally.
This is a much smaller database than Rapid. I mean, Rapid was uploading 3.5 to 4 million records every single night. Every single night. And the database itself had about 8 million records in it.
So it's a little bit bigger than our 4 and 5 records that we have in our systems in this class.
Now, the data I'm working on now, I mean, each site has about 10,000 records maybe. And Exelon came on board with 10 sites all at the same time, 10 nuclear sites, so about 100,000 records for them. It's a much lower volume of records, but we're going to be tying it to more and more information. We're tying it to information also from the company website, from the catalog website, and we're going to have some web services in place to interface with their ERP systems, enterprise resource planning systems, which are their huge information systems. They spend $20 million on.
We just had a person from Toby Hanna come down and talk. Some students were able to attend that and hear them talk about their ERP
very good.
Scope, I guess you could say.
In fact, what Fred and I were doing was working on designing proprietary ERP system for PP&L. That's how we started working together. But these systems are huge, and we'll be interfacing with those. So now we're talking exponentially ramping up the number of records that we're accessing and running into. We're not at that point yet. We're still at the crawl.
With Amazon, support is great. They're responsive. And
So we actually haven't even needed them for support yet because things are working so great. And this unfolded in kind of a funny way too. And one of the reasons I told Fred about this to share this information with you guys was that I thought you should be aware of it. So you know those things are out there. I would have made some different decisions even within the past 6 months if I had understood exactly how deep all of these services go. But originally, we're filling out this request for proposal, this RFP for Exelon. Just a huge, huge endeavor. Fred was showing me the last assignment he gave you guys.
The project.
And the project. And multiply that by about 10, and that was the amount of paper that we had to fill out to do this thing. It was just sick. It was insane. And at the same time, I needed to be developing stuff because it was due by the end of the year. So it was one of those things where we don't even know exactly what you want yet, but I have to start developing it. And I also have to fill out this ridiculous stack of paper.
I mean, you have to do multiple things at the same time?
It's unbelievable.
That's ridiculous.
Oh, it's just
That's
crazy.
just craziness.
So, in light of that, I had so much stuff going on, and I was working about 70, 80 hours a week, which is not typical for me. Just ask Fred. He didn't even know I had a job. But I was working just tons and tons, and so I was doing anything to offload this work. So the company that I'm working with, they had some guys, they didn't have an internal IT department at all, information technology. I don't know if you guys throw around the term IT at all, but just a little bit. So these guys that they worked with, just to come check out their network and help them set up a backup, that kind of stuff, just whenever they needed it, as needed. So we said, well, we'll let these guys set up a server for us also.
Those guys being?
This third-party company, which I won't name because I'm about to say bad things about them. So we just, I said, let me offload the work to them because I'm too busy. I can't do this. And the main reason I really wanted them to help was they could fill out this stack of paper having to do with the computer room and the servers that are set up and the security, physical security, how often do you change your passwords, and just this insane amount of stuff. And I wanted those guys to fill out that paperwork. That's all I really wanted. But in the end, we signed a 3-year contract with them.
Oh, no.
Which wasn't so good. And I'll tell you why in just a second. So we got that paperwork back from them, and we gave it all to Exelon, and we won the contract, excited about it, and because Exelon is one of the movers and shakers in the industry. They provide 1/5 of all the power in the U.S. from nuclear power plants, so they're big. They're one of the big players, and it's very good to have them in your corner. So we got it. Now, these guys set up the server for us, and we go live December 31st. The first 2 weeks, we had like 10 outages. Now, I don't mean power plant outages. I mean, our site was down 10 times. It's like, what are you guys doing? This thing doesn't work at all. You got to fix this. So they go in, and what they had really done is they had a server, some sort of server in, a Blade server or something in their computer room, and they were just giving us access to it. Something just wasn't working.
Might as well have it in their parents' house.
They might as well.
Oh,
So it wasn't working at all. It kept going down, and I kept having to roll things over to our backup server, my dinky little dev server that I set up for $30, $40 a month. And we're paying these guys $600 a month to do this. And it's like, So.
And it turned out that they were Al Qaeda. No.
I knew it. That's the only way I could have been more upset with them is if they were Al Qaeda. So really, it was awful.
Yeah, we've had worse happen.
And the thing is, those guys didn't look bad. We look bad. We've got Exelon using our stuff.
Nobody knows they're behind the scenes.
Yeah, and they're saying, well, your application doesn't work. And I have to say, well, it's not me, it's him. Well, you talk to him, and he says, it's not me, it's him. It just keeps going. Well, these guys gave us a new server. They fixed everything, thank goodness. We went along for 3 weeks going just great, and all of a sudden, things just shut down again. We completely lost the system again. Like,
Kevin Woodishik didn't work there, did he?
No. What does this key do? So
we had a guy that accidentally turned off the server one day because he thought it was the one he had to turn off.
it was fantastic. He was giving a tour of the computer room, and he wanted to look inside the cabinet. He was showing it off to a new hire, and he turned the key, and the cabinet didn't open. And all the lights went out. It was the production server, too. But anyway, so These guys came up with another server for us, and it died. And this time, again, they did the whole pointing to somebody else game. It's their ISP was having bandwidth issues.
It's not your problem, though.
Yeah, it's not my problem. It's not his problem. It's not his problem. It's his problem. Well, in the end, they still couldn't use our application. So we stuck with my development server, and for 3 weeks we ran with it, and it worked like a champ. InfoQuest, they were great. I was very happy with all the service. And
Should let them know that. They're a good group.
yeah. So then I said, you guys got to come up with something else. So they came up with another one. They said, this one's going to work. They gave me the information for connecting to the server, and wouldn't you know, they set up an Amazon server for me, something I could do myself. But now that we're paying these guys $600 a month, they might as well do it. And $600 a month isn't really a lot to pay, but it's a lot more than $40 a month, which is what we would have been paying if I'd set up the server myself. And so they set up this server and taking advantage of Amazon services and all that. Now, one thing I want to be really clear about on this is that the cloud, we talk about the cloud, and are we ready to talk about the cloud?
We're ready to talk about the cloud because we're getting short on time. So.
Oh, how'd that happen? We should have been messing around. So anyway, the cloud. Anybody have a working definition of the cloud? Just tell me what the cloud is.
Sure. It's just you offset your computing to on there, right?
There it is.
Just that. Just that.
The hallway.
Amazon's site takes like 40 web pages to say that. That's all it is. Exactly right. It's just putting the computing out there somewhere. And it's not a new idea. It was created in the 60s, arguably in the 50s. And they even called it the cloud in the 60s. It's just it got trendy to call it the cloud in the last 6 years, and everybody's all excited about it. But the truth is that it's just the same stuff that you're using here, but it's out there. And it's not, you don't have to do any wacky new technology. You don't need to learn Amazon's relational database or Amazon's OS, or you end up running a machine that looks exactly like this machine. You can't even tell the difference, except it's running Windows 2008 server. Looks exactly like the Windows you're used to seeing. It just so happens that it's not in this building, it's not on your desktop, it's out there in the cloud.
But you don't have to care for it. You don't
have to care
you don't
for
have the cost associated with the hardware.
The-
buying servers, RAM drives, it's more of a service now.
Absolutely.
It's prorated.
And I wanted to invent a term, since people are using software as a service and platform as a service. I want to use the term hardware as a service, because that's all it really is. But I has it. But somebody apparently thought the cloud sounded a lot cooler. So, but that's what it is. It's hardware as a service. It's everything rolled into one, hardware and software, and it's all the stuff you're used to doing. I mean, the stuff that you guys did in this class with SQL Server. You install SQL Server 2008 Express Edition on whatever server you set up with Amazon or GoDaddy or InfoQuest, and you're off to the races. You can start creating your video service to compete with Voodoo and Redbox and all those guys just like that. But, the cool thing is, the thing that I really thought Fred needed to share with you guys is that you need to understand you have these resources available to you, and now you really are in an age where you're only limited by your imagination. I mean, that sounds like such a lame thing.
And I've said that a lot. I'm glad you're saying it because I think they heard me say it too many times.
It sounds like such a lame thing, but it's true. I mean, you have all these resources available to you. You no longer have to build a computer center to do these things. And you can start small and then build as you grow. I mean, one of the cool things about the cloud, they'll do things like, Amazon. I love Amazon. I bought these shoes from Amazon. I bought these pants from Amazon. I don't know, my wife gave me this watch. But I buy everything there. I go there first before anything else. But what they did was they realized that we built all these computers to allow for all these contingencies, and 98% of the time they're going unused. Even though everybody's buying stuff from them all the time, they have all this computing power just hanging out. And somebody said, we should make some money with this excess power.
It's smart.
And it's really smart. And so like just last year they did $1 billion in business just with that. That's $1,000 million. That's a lot. And that's just the beginning. I mean, they're just getting started and people are using it. And of course Netflix uses it. And why does Netflix use Amazon services? Because they have very different usage patterns. Sunday night, everybody settles in and watches a movie. They need tons and tons and tons of bandwidth and processing power and all that other junk. Monday morning, almost everybody's at work or studying for Fred's class or something like that. And so their usage goes way down. Now, instead of Netflix building this monster computer center with millions and millions of dollars worth of equipment
And staff.
they turn this knob and usage goes way up. Once again, my grammar skills come into play. And then Monday morning, they turn it way down, and they don't need to use it anymore.
You know, there's another concept that you may have been picking up on too. People are doing that with other things. This model is being spread into so many other areas. For example, say you have an automobile that you're making monthly payments on. So right now, when you go, you pull it in your driveway at home, it just sits there. Well, there's a service in New York City. Actually, there's a web service, a website that you can make your car available. You could rent it out. People can use it and they pay you, and then you put that money towards your down payment. It's fully insured. It's all part of that service package.
But don't let Fred drive your car. So you drive. Not good.
But they're doing it with everything. They're doing it with tools. Like, how many of you have parents that may have gone out and bought this awesome drill and they used it once, and then it sits in the garage for the other 12 or 11 months out of the year? Rent it out to the neighbors who need it. And it's like a Craigslist type thing, but it's the same thing. Computing. It's revolutionary. It's social in a way. You know, IT's become social in a variety of ways, right? And then everything is sharing. It's a sharing economy, and that's. I think the thing that scares me, and you're all going to pick up on it at some point, is what happens to us. Like, what will be like? We talk about the turning of the dial, and instead of having 20 companies that provide hardware services, now you have one that only needs 5 guys instead of 20 companies that need 5 guys. So like the workforce, what happens to that's the thing that I always like to say, that those people will have to find themselves marketable and employable and with another set of skill sets. That's the realization that has to be taught to kids at a very early age. All your skill sets, you could all be displaced like that. What are you going to do?
The same reason that this is all great, it's the same reason it's a real threat to us. I mean, you can outsource the hardware, the software, the development of all those pieces, because you can access it from anywhere.
But that being said, fear should not be your driving factor of your profession.
Fear is for suckers.
So is peace.
So is peace. Well, the truth is, I mean, what we do as a country really is when we
take over more countries.
Well, we do that, which is an important part of it. That's why peace is for suckers. But we invent ways. We invent. We have no political agenda, just Fred does. I'll have to tell you about the time we made an intern cry. But that's another day.
He wouldn't vote!
He was asking for it. But anyway, where were we? No, the technology and the fact that it's available from anywhere and all that stuff, it's the thing, it's a double-edged sword for sure. But the thing is, you figure out how to be value added in that situation, and don't assume it's automatic. I mean, you got to be value added. You got to work hard, and if you're not willing to work hard, the guy next to you is. And what I was starting to say is, instead of taking over other countries, Fred, warmonger, we invent new technologies.
Take over other countries.
We make them want our technology so that they depend on us.
That's right.
Like this. While we manufacture it someplace else, it's something where they depend on us because they now, and actually help us with outsourcing, because now they can't work for cheap anymore. They have to be able to buy an iPad. They need to make a lot more money.
But it's made from the crushed bones of Chinese slaves.
Oh, wow.
That's just a rumor. Started by,
Me. Sorry. No.
So anyway, the point is that we do need to continue to invent things. We do need to continue to apply ourselves to technology. It's not automatic anymore. Things are changing so quickly that we have to be the ones coming up with those ideas. We need to come up with new and inventive ways to justify our existence and play a part in this game. And that's what we've done so far. I mean, we continue to evolve. We come up with these new things, and when one thing gets displaced, another one pops up. Now, the truth is that since I started this, everybody, since my entire career, people keep saying, well, this new thing is going to make it so that management can do all their own programming. Well, that never happens because management doesn't want to do programming. They do want to have nice dashboards like you guys just recently worked on so they can see their information, but they don't want to do the work to create those. Now, you guys found some great tools to facilitate building those dashboards, but you still used another tool to build the tool that somebody else used. So that's always going to be true. And for as long as I can foresee, you're going to keep using different tools. It's going to keep evolving. And the idea is you need to be able to know how to, your value-added part of the process, to pull all that stuff together and actually make it into something that someone who doesn't want to do that work can use to do their job. And the cloud is no different. I mean, I've got these servers that we're not paying anybody to be the administrators for the servers. I mean, they make sure that the temperature in the room stays right. They make sure that if the whole system goes down, it can be brought up again on another virtualized server just like that.
Patched out.
Yeah, but as far as the day-to-day stuff, I installed SQL Server on that server. They didn't do it for me. I installed all of our software. I upgraded the version of .NET on it. I mean, I'm still doing all that stuff. I just pay them for the hardware, and I'm still doing all that work. So they still need administration. You still need people that understand your application. I still am the one that put in place the job that takes the stuff from Washington State and moves it down to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Now, I could pay somebody to do that as well, but that's not really where they're making lots of money. They're making lots of money by the fact that they have this big pile of hardware that they can break out in these little bitty pieces and let you use a little bit for a little while, you use a little bit for a little while. And I read some very cool things. One last thing about the cloud as a whole, and that was that people using it for supercomputing, and will use it for just a 3-day period to really crunch some numbers and then crank this thing up and for 3 days spend like $15,000. And then after that, they never use it again because they needed to get those numbers, they put them in some usable form, and then they're done with it. And in the old days, if you wanted to have that kind of processing, and it had 30,000 CPUs involved doing the process, 30,000 CPUs doing all this number crunching. Imagine setting that system up. I mean, how do you even start? Now, by the time they set up a system that would do that, it would be out of date. It would take $10 million, $15, $20 million to set that room up. They only used it for 3 days. And by the time they set it up, it's obsolete. Versus Amazon, I think if they said it took them like an hour to set all this stuff up on Amazon. And poof, they took advantage of all of it, and then poof, it went away.
It's really
powerful.
neat. Yeah. What I'd like to do is just kind of wrap it up, and if you have any final, like you gave some pretty good advice there, if you have any final short comments, and then I'm going to turn the camera off and then ask if you have any questions or thoughts. I know we've been going here for about an hour, and that's a long time for you to sit still on a Monday morning, but you have an opportunity here to actually ask someone some questions, anything. We're open up the gates here. And I know that you prepared some. If you want to ask the ones you have, that's fine. If anything else came to mind, that's fine. So why don't you just kind of wrap it up?
I don't think I have any wrap-up comments. Let's go right to the questions.
Okay, why don't you just...
I might come up with some more wrap-up comments after.